Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmar, and together with my co-host Mark Ronich of jbiztechphilly.com and Statewide News Service.
Right, and it's great to be here, thank you. And we have a special guest. School is back in session, and we want to do a back-to-school episode of the Jewish View. So we invited Cathy Lewis, the president of the Schenectady City School Boards, to be our guest.
Excellent.
So welcome
Thank
to
you.
the Jewish View.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
So how are this?
Mark wants to sign up for school already.
I
Can you
do.
sign him
Does
up
he?
over here?
Well, our continuing education flyer just came out today, so
All
I
right,
have
there
a
you go.
feeling that we could probably enroll you.
that is a Jewish concept. We're on the Jewish View, continuing education. A lot of kids just saying, maybe we can talk about what you offer in the continuing education, but I'm done with school, I'm done with college, goodbye, good luck. And that's not a Jewish attitude, and I don't think it's the
I
good
always
attitude.
emphasize at commencement that it's the start of lifelong learning,
Right.
and that's, I think, an important part.
So if you had to give the state of the schools address for the city of Schenectady, what is the state of the schools in Schenectady?
I'm very excited about the progress that we've made in the city school district. In the 4 years that I've been involved with the Board of Education, I've just seen that progress. I see some real emphasis on our equity and on our academics, and emphasizing reading, and we're getting more procedures in place and more emphasis on children's and kids' issues.
Well,
And
because 4 years ago, you were really hurting. You had a problem
We
with
were.
the superintendent, you had a problem with budget, you had problems left and right, you were cutting and...
I don't want to give the impression that our problems are gone.
No.
But because as you've probably heard and read, we feel very shorted in terms of the finances, in terms of the budgetary considerations. There are only 13 school districts out of 670 or so in the state of New York that that actually educate children for less money than we do. And that's pretty
Wow.
interesting. We figure we're about $62 million shorted from what the state says we should receive
Every year.
each year. But we've been addressing this. We've been doing those cuts, and unfortunately, because we do have a needy population and we need the services. So.
Well, in the 2014-15 budget that was approved, you cut this budget by $3.5 million, is what
it
I'm
was in
looking-
that neighborhood, yes.
And then the cut means 40 jobs were lost, electives were cut, and class sizes increased.
It's actually, I believe it was more than 40 positions. It was probably
So-
40 professional staff.
I don't mean
teachers.
I don't mean to burst your bubble. I know that you're very positive and you like
Right.
to say good things, and we all want to see good things for the Schenectady schools. But when you hear things like this,
But that's
how
an
much
interesting
progress was
thing.
there really made?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the interesting thing. I mean, I'm sitting here combining. I don't live in Schenectady, but you cut staff, but you make things better. What's the magic formula?
Well, we've been emphasizing more professional development for our staff, and trying to emphasize the importance of our equity issues, and to make sure that all children are learning, trying to have teachers, not just teachers, but other staff, develop relationships with children to help them with their needs, and we're hoping that this is going to pay off for
but
us.
school property taxes rose also.
Well,
A
in
little
order
bit.
to accomplish what we could do in the way of a budget, initially we were $9.5–10 million short, and in the final New York State budget, we received about $5.5 million. To stay under our property tax cap, we put in a 2.75% property tax increase, premised on the fact that it was to be rebated this year. And that netted us another $1.5 million. That's where the other $3.5 million was left for us to make cuts.
How much of a help is Senator Farley with this? I mean, I know he's a nice guy and he's been there forever. He's
Right.
like the most senior member in the Senate, and he's Mr. Librarian, I call him. But if he represents Schenectady and he's in the majority
Right.
of the state Senate, I mean, and you still need all these cuts, and you're 13th from the bottom in terms of paying,
Right.
in terms of the
Well,
budget and all this.
Clearly, we're not
How-
the only school district in Senator Farley's districts that needs assistance because he represents rural schools
Sure.
as well. And I believe, I'm not absolutely certain of how much additional monies Senator Farley was able to get for it. I think it was in the neighborhood of $500,000 or so this year.
Who's making these decisions? As
Well-
state
Staff.
education,
Staff.
I mean, staff of who? I mean, the state education department is allotting the money?
No. It's through the New York State Legislature and through the committees behind it. As you're probably aware, the campaign for fiscal equity that was settled in 2006, and that's where I made the reference to the $62 million. The campaign for fiscal equity determined what's called the foundation aid, and it's from that they have put into place what they call the gap elimination adjustment, which has been in effect since around 2008 or 9, when the state went through the fiscal crisis, when the country went through the fiscal crisis. And so we have never received the full amount because it was supposed to be building. And for us, unfortunately, it's been lower. And so.
So do you come down to the Capitol and lobby when the school boards lobby?
Right.
Are you part of that contingent?
I have come down and visited with Senator Farley. I've
Okay.
talked with Senator Kachik in our district, with Assemblyman Santa Barbara, Assemblyman Steck. We were represented by 4 legislatures. The city school district alone
Yeah.
had parts of each of that school district are with all 4 of those
Right.
4 of those people. I've been down to the National School Board Association in Washington and
Do you
down
ever
there.
ask the legislators that with the lottery money, it keeps growing, lottery keeps growing. It wasn't intended to be instead of, it was intended to be in addition to what the state would
Right.
offer, and it turned out to be instead of.
I
And so the money that the state gives gets lower, and state aid to education gets lower and lower because the lottery money is making up the gap, and then whatever else has to go into the general fund.
My
So-
understanding, and I did just read something about this, but and I don't have all the fine details of it, but is that the lottery money becomes part of the general fund basically, and the general fund then is where the education dollars come from in terms of allocation. And
Well, that's the
it's not
fallacy.
it's not totally that way, because they can say the lottery fund is going to education, but then they reduce the amount coming out of the general fund that goes to
That's the
education.
problem.
And that's
That's what I
yeah.
mean by instead of,
right.
where it's
It
supposed
hasn't
to be
been an addition. It hasn't
to.
been a supplement. It's
Because
been-
you would be doing
right,
fine if it was in addition to.
right.
Your school district.
Every school
So-
district around the state probably would be doing a lot
And,
better.
and so why not make that your crying message,
I
when
think
you-
because it's pretty complicated. I mean,
Of course.
we've been advocating for the monies, on our basis, but they all have the impression that if they were to give Schenectady more, they'd be taking away from someplace else in their district, and no one wants to do that. So I think it's a fine line that we walk in regard to this
I would just be
advocacy.
furious.
We've been
I would-
very,
if I was in your shoes, I
we've been
couldn't,
shaking the trees.
I couldn't be school board president because I would be screaming from the rooftops that this lottery money is being misused. And it should be, for our kids' education and for what we want, for our kids to learn and everything that we need for the kids to learn, the music, the sports, and the basics of, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
I guess I'll say that I'm not sure it's totally effective for a school board president to shout that from the rooftops, as you're saying, because there has been a pronouncement at one point that school board members are only trying to make their jobs easier if they're doing that. We really need our parents, we need our citizens,
Okay.
we need everyone else to do a
Point
lot of this
taken.
advocating. That the difficulty is that there's an impression that we're trying to make our jobs easier and not
But-
avoiding the cuts, avoiding the reductions. Those
But
sorts of things.
the School Musicians Association comes up and, with their
Oh, yeah.
bands, and they lobby, and you have a constant flow of different
Oh, and
types of
we've been
education.
here. We've had teachers here. I mean, the New York State United Teachers have been pretty much on the page with some of the reductions that we have. We've had teachers here. We've had different advocacy groups. We've in general not used our young people, although we've had some government classes come over to do some advocating, but we've not used our young people because we feel it's important for them to stay in school.
What kind of programs are, like getting down to the nitty-gritty
Well,
that are being cut that because of the lack of funds?
In,
I mean, what are the kids being, so to speak, what are they losing?
There are the core programs, of course, that we have to do, the ones that are required for Regents exams and so on. So we weren't kidding this spring when we were talking about the necessity possibly of reducing our music programs, cutting some of that in half, our sports programs, our arts. We have a very prominent arts program, and I mean, for example, in theater arts and so on. We do some wonderful productions throughout our school district, but specifically at our high school. And I know that people say, oh, that they're just crying wolf, and that's not going to be cut. But we've had to make reductions in those areas as well. We've got some music teachers that go to 4 or 5 different schools in the course of a day, and that's very difficult.
I actually like to, in a way it's even more unfair. It's double unfair because they're low-income families in Schenectady, and you can make a case where even if you cut it in a nice suburbs, the parents have the extra money maybe to give art lessons and music lessons. But these kids, if they're in low-income families, there's no extra money to go out and get a music lesson for these kids. That's what I'm saying. So when they get cut, they're zero, and maybe if you cut in a nicer area, the parents will make do.
That's absolutely the case, and we recognize that. We recognize the value that those activities, the sports, the music, the arts, and so on, those are programs that keep children in school a good many times. And I can't tell you, my first year on the board was 10-11, and in the spring of 2011, as we had settled our budget, there was also a concert held at Proctor's where we had 500 of our young people, and now we're a school district of around close to 10,000. We had 500 of our young people do a strings concert. I had tears in my eyes because it was just so emotional for me to watch these children, watch their teachers, know that year we had not had to make any cuts to the music program, and we and here they were performing, and I'm talking about the elementary, the middle school, and the high school, performing at their respective levels. 500 children, most of whom are using violins or violas or cellos that have been donated yes. that have been rehabbed or refurbished or whatever the appropriate word is by Friends of Music through donations and so on that they receive, and that's how we're offering music programs at this point.
I knew someone who worked in the Schenectady school system and for the libraries, and she had to go around to like 3 or 4 different. You have Howe School, right?
Howe School is our pre-K and kindergarten.
Right. So it was
right
there,
now.
And then there were a couple of other schools.
Librarians is one of the programs that is not mandated. And we've had to take some reductions in that area as well. Yeah.
And that should go to the heart of Senator Farley, because when you got to cut what it's dear to him, then that should make him mad in his home school district, that he should be able to refund, get that money back.
I believe we had a 16 or 20-page workbook that we met with community members and so on, over 200 people from the community in our budget development, and we had pages and pages of proposed areas where we could make cuts, things that weren't mandated, and even some things that were, and we could try to shift some things. And unfortunately, the kindergarten was one of the things that we even talked about doing. That would have saved us probably $1.5 million to cut our kindergarten. But does it make sense? Does it make sense to have pre-K programs, which we do have, and then miss kindergarten and put them in first grade? No, we'd lose that whole year.
Mandatory universal pre-K is not.
And we don't have it. We probably have it for. I think it's around 400 children right now, but that's about half of our kindergarten
Sure.
each year, so.
You know, I just always look at, and Mark it brings in many officials, and we've had from Schenectady also, but really it's a common issue. And what the issue is just that it's not a matter, oh, the kid didn't get art lessons, or this child didn't get music lessons, or half of kindergarten. But, you know, like it has ramifications throughout society. Then that child would be less, you know, if they're into art or into music, they have something, that child wouldn't be into drugs. If they're not into drugs, there'll be less crime. So there's reverberations, you know, in education. And again, as I started the show, I mean, I know being Jewish, and, you know, it is the Jewish view, but the main idea is just that education's so important to emphasize in Jewish people. And people say, why, morally and ethically, the Jewish people are smarter. Well, you know, it doesn't come from the wind. It doesn't from the gefilte fish that you eat Friday night. It comes because there's emphasis on education. If you have an educated child, then you have a better educated adult and a better society. And just cutting it, I just see as ripple effects, especially the kids need it so. If you can say about anybody, these children in the lower income,
No
they
question
need
about
the
it.
education more. It's a shame, you know, there's money for everything, but when, you know, like Mark was saying, there's legislative, they're tossing billions of dollars around. I mean, not tossing, you know, they're spending here billions and billions. And to me, this is one of the most important, the number one issue, and they just know how to lottery
Well,
and
the
play
governor
games
says
with
he's
them.
the lobbyist for children.
Yes.
Well, I think they got to change lobbyists, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, look at what's happening. You know, but what's your background, Kathy?
My background?
Were you a teacher? Or?
No, not at all. I was a math and German major in college, and I worked for General Electric Company for 43 and a half years. I retired just
You started young.
a year and a half. I started when I was 2.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago, I just retired, and I worked in the corporate tax department of General Electric.
So your background is in
In
accounting,
finance and
numbers,
finance and
Yeah,
accounting,
you're a numbers
yeah,
geek, or
absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons that people approached me about running for school board in 2010, is that I had the financial background for this.
well, I wanted to. Do you get a sense that do you have an idea where there's a sense of apathy towards the Schenectady schools within the city, within the
A
parents?
sense of apathy?
Yeah.
No, well, we obviously, as most urban districts, would like to have more parental engagement. But we recognize that our parents have sometimes some very dire concerns as to where their house will be that night, or where they'll be sleeping, where food will be coming from, where there are matters of employment, and those various health issues and so on. We've done in the community what's called Bridges Out of Poverty, looking at just difficulties with things such as public transportation, getting to and from places. We recognize that many of our parents may not have had good school experiences themselves, and so on. But we're trying to engage our parents more in their children's education.
The reason I ask is because you had 3 open seats on the school
We did.
board, and only 2 people
We had
ran.
2 candidates, right?
So who
That was a
filled-
surprise to me, yes.
And who filled the 3rd one? Because it would be either write-in or be an appointment. So how did that eventually
Well,
get resolved?
in our case, because we were having the election, it was a write-in vote. Trying to remember, I think we had 800 and some write-in
Names?
votes, and it was for 132 or thereabouts different names, and that didn't count Mickey and Minnie Mouse,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but it did
Duck,
have
yeah.
Grumpy the cat, and Daram Hitlal was the winner.
Who?
Daram Hitlal is his name.
Oh, I wanted to make sure that last name sort of got me. It was
Hitlall, Hitlal.
Okay.
He
It was too close to someone else.
yes,
and,
he
yeah.
was the winner of
Okay.
the write-in vote. So we have a full complement of board members. We have 7 at this point.
So was there I remember someone saying that they were they wanted to know who was chairman, and everyone stood in the line, and everyone else stood back
back.
except this one, and
Right.
he became the chairman,
Three
you know.
Stooges
So
job.
is that
Right.
how he feels? I mean, is he dedicated to this? I mean, he didn't ask to be,
No, I think he must have expressed interest to it, to have, you know, because I think he received 130-something write-in votes. So clearly,
oh,
it
he
was,
campaigned.
clearly something had occurred
Yeah, it wasn't
behind the
his
scenes.
mother and
There
his
really-
grandmother.
Because
There
to spell
really-
his name alone is
Right.
not
There
going to be
really
easy.
isn't, there's not a lot of time, you know, to activate a write-in campaign, because the petitions are due May 1st and the election was May 21st. And so there's the space of 3 weeks thereabouts for anyone to identify themselves. At around April 1st, I think it was, we held a night with people who might be interested in running for school board, and I thought we had potentially 6 candidates at that point, and then they didn't turn in the petitions. So that's how we ended up with 2 candidates
There's
for
any
3
money
seats.
for those
No.
positions? or
Absolutely,
voluntary?
no.
Nobody wants a
All
volunteer.
Board of Education positions, other than in the big 5 school districts,
This
are
is-
unpaid.
The candidates legally must be 18 years of age, qualified
Right.
voter in their school district, able to read and write.
Right.
And according to the School Boards Association, effective school board members need to be effective communicators, consensus builders, community participants, decision makers, information processors, leaders, and team players. Well, if you're a leader, how can you be a team player? Because you're leading. So you got to tell them. Everyone else has to be the team player.
Well, there's
you know?
no I in
So-
team, as they say.
Well, but there's an I in win.
Yeah. So,
But anyway, so that's it. And there's no pay. It's a thankless job to some extent.
so I've been told. I find some
It's somewhat
hidden rewards in
rewarding,
it.
yeah.
I said that if I ever pursued public office, I would probably do it for a school district in New York State, because I'm not a native of New York. I did not attend New York schools, and I have no children in the school district. I was a taxpayer, and that was it. I felt I could be pretty objective about things.
So where did you come from?
I came originally from Cincinnati, and I went to Cincinnati Public Schools.
And
So
then to Schenectady?
I came to Schenectady from college, yes,
Okay.
to work for General Electric.
To work for General
Yeah.
Electric, okay.
Yes. Mhm.
Let me ask you, the 2 other biggie issues, and it is connected with schools, is drugs and crime. We would love to think.
Hey, I'm the reporter. What are you talking about? No, go ahead.
There's
nothing
We do
rabbinic.
so many shows, Mark, over here that he's rubbing off on me. Maybe I'll make you a rabbi soon.
No, oh.
Yeah. In any case, but they are real issues. I mean, you would love to think that these were dealing with children, innocent little children, and crime is for the adults. Drugs are even say there's obviously the high school kids go to 18, so they're not children even.
Right.
I mean, you can call them children, but they can do a lot of serious things. But now when you're talking about drugs, and you read reports even in the middle schools, even the younger,
Yeah.
and you have to deal with that. As a
There,
board president,
I can't say that we've dealt directly with any problems of drugs. I think our social workers, as I said, we have staff that's more than just teachers, because we have social workers, we have physical therapists, we have all of these. But so I think that these people become aware of young people that might have those difficulties. I just received a letter just within the last week from some students who had attended a program, I believe, up at Dartmouth, and they were asking us to look at the matter of drug use in the high school. And so that'll probably be something we might talk about this fall. They were advocating, as part of the solution, random drug testing in the high school. Whether or not that's possible, or those are things we would have to explore.
So I get the sense that crime is not a big problem in the Schenectady schools, or?
Crime in what sense? I mean, we
In what
have
sense?
a number, we have,
Well, okay, so bullying, cyberbullying and bullying, bullying is a crime.
we have instances of things where that starts. We have
Okay.
more than our
Do you
share of
have,
superintendent hearings as a consequence
do you
of
have,
things.
heroin's a big problem with law enforcement
I have,
out on the streets?
and I
but-
know it is in the capital region. I have not heard of, I'm sure we have incidents of that in the schools. I have not heard of specific.
Okay. So do you have the
instances.
DARE program in the schools?
We did have DARE for many years, but DARE became very controversial, and so DARE in Schenectady has
more.
not been happening the
Okay,
last
so
half
do you have
dozen
any
years.
charter schools in Schenectady?
We do not have any specific charter schools within the Schenectady area right now, but we
Okay.
do have young people who attend the charter schools here in Albany.
What's your view on charter schools?
I think that charter schools have a place, but I don't think that I don't think they're funded correctly in New York State. I think that's one of the difficulties. I think that charter schools are, I'm going to say, let off the hook in terms of the children that can attend them. I mean, we need to educate all children with special needs and children with behavioral difficulties and so on. And charter schools oftentimes are extremely selective. That leaves the school districts with the responsibility of educating these children. And so, you know, that makes a difference. I'm not sure that their performance has indicated that they are doing much better than
What about,
public
let's just
schools.
say performance, what about dropout rates? You know, from high
Well,
school?
let me
I
tell,
know-
this year, I mean, it's interesting. The only thing we could account for, we looked at this year in Schenectady, 13, 14, and our attendance really skyrocketed this year.
Very good.
And what we can attribute that to is that we have free lunch and free breakfast and lunch for every person, every child in our school district. And we will have that again here
when you say
in 14, 15.
When you say skyrocket, what is that?
We went from something like 72% up to 90, 91%
Of what?
in terms of the attendance on a more or less regular basis.
Oh, so you have
We track our attendance.
so you have 9% that really are delinquent.
Probably in that neighborhood, yeah.
So
the
you have
food is
truant
doing good. It's
truant
interesting.
officers that go after them.
We have an
It's
attendance.
like the old days.
We don't have truant officers per se, but we have an attendance person within the district.
Really?
And so on.
And they go knock on the door and say,
They
"Why aren't
have.
you in school?"
They have. It's my understanding that they have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's interesting, food, the point is
Food.
food brings
That
them in.
seemed, from our Board of Education vantage point, we couldn't identify anything else that had so significantly changed. We also have a backpack weekend program,
Backpack weekend
for providing food to children.
How do
That's
you,
excellent.
you've been through what, 3 superintendents while you
Two while I've been there.
Yagilski?
Yes, John
Ely-
Yagilski
so
was our
Ely-
interim, and then Larry Spring is our
Okay, so
superintendent currently.
and so you came after
I
Ely?
came as Ely was leaving, yes.
Okay, so looking at what the mess you found,
Mhm.
and Yagilski, try to clean things up, and then moving on to Larry Spring, what's your assessment? You like the superintendent? You like what?
Well,
things are
as a
going?
person who was involved in hiring him, we're very
Well.
pleased with him. His emphasis on and an identification of this underfunding, for one thing, has been important, but the emphasis on equity issues, on the fact that we need to respect the fact that that socioeconomic factors and special needs and should not be differentiate, should not determine how a child is important. And I'm not saying it as well as he does.
He's a nice guy. We had
in
him
that
on the
regard.
show. He's a
Mhm.
nice guy. And
Mhm.
I just wanted to get your assessment of whether there's
And-
something going on behind the scenes that I just didn't know
We've
about.
made significant changes, he has, and so on. I mean, the board is only really responsible for hiring the superintendent, but of course, we
And
approve
firings.
all of the, other hires and this kind of thing. But we've had significant changes in our district leadership team,
Right.
and I think that people
For the
are
better?
getting the procedures together and.
When you say you had
all these
changes,
kinds
is
of
it changes for the better?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm just
Absolutely, we've had people who've retired and other people who resigned and that sort of thing. So I think we have a very good group of people.
Okay, and Common Core, quickly, you like Common Core? It's still...
I think Common Core for the Schenectady School District has represented an approach that can be delivered with the rigor that we did not necessarily have in our school district. And we actually had some positive results out of the testing that's happened with Common Core. And
So you're a fan?
at this point, I'd say, and my understanding is that people generally like the standards, they didn't like the rollout,
Okay.
and in terms of the...
And you go along with that?
And I do.
Okay, good. That's what we want. We're out of time, that's why. I'm
Oh,
rushing.
okay.
You know,
That's all.
just to
Sorry.
end off on a good note, but Kathy, that, you know, you say things are better, but it's not a magic wand, and it's the people behind it, and you're included, of course, and one of the top people. So you say good job to you, that you're doing a good job in Schenectady and helping children, which is, like I say, probably the most important job really in the world, is educating children.
Right.
And you should continue with success with good health.
Yes.
Thank you very
All
much.
the best of success.
Thank you.